What's going on YouTube? Welcome to episode 156 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zero Elite and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and help me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And don't forget to check out the Discord. I'll have a link in the description below. Those of you that are looking to get involved in my next ship build poll, you have missed the ship on that one. No pun intended, but the poll for my next ship build has closed. It's going to be Voyager. It's one out in the poll, so I'm very excited about that build that's going to be coming up, but we still have some work to do on the Enterprise D. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So kick back, relax, and let's go. So we'll be working on the pylons today. See, I've got a reference shot up. We're going to be kind of focusing on some detail here on the sides, but we're also going to be stretching out our pylons a little bit, bringing them forward. You're probably wondering why I'm using the gold. To be honest with you, I'm just trying to get a different color in the front here to separate them. You can use gold, you can use blue, you could use red. To be honest with you, any color is fine at this point. We just want something that's going to stand out from the rest of the ship. So this way we kind of have like a marker to go off of. And you can see I've added 3 blocks in the front to give us a nice spacer, and I'm literally just going to repeat the same exact template that we have going off the first and second block. So you can see that we're literally rebuilding what we have right here. Not too difficult. The reason I say that is because if you're getting stuck, just look at what you've done directly behind you. The front row of the pylon, we're just moving it a couple of rows forward. I know some of you were asking where I was the past week. I took a week off because of the holiday. And not only that, I had actually gotten my 2016 Star Trek Beyond Enterprise model that I had commissioned. I got it in the mail, and I was really excited about it. So I spent the 4th of July weekend working on that model. I'm still actually working on it, and I'm probably going to put a video up once it's done, all the way to keep the hype train rolling about once we hit 1,000 subscribers, because we've got a tutorial coming up for that ship on Minecraft. So definitely keep an eye out for that, and if you can help me out and share my channel with your friends, anyone that enjoys starship building or anything nerd related in general, this is the channel for them. I definitely appreciate anybody that takes the time to share my channel. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to at this point. I know I had somebody ask me why I'm still putting out episodes on the Enterprise D if I lost the save file, and the answer to that question is that I've been making a point to pre-record all my builds. And I do this to help me out in a couple of different ways, but the main one is that so I don't catch up to myself and I have plenty of content to go off of. And that's basically what happened in the Enterprise D. That when I lost the save file, I still had plenty of recordings that I had already done. So that's kind of where we're at on that. We're going to go up to, I think, episode 192, and then the Enterprise D will be done. And then we'll hop right into Voyager. I still haven't started Voyager just yet. I'm probably going to be getting on Minecraft here in the not too distant future to start building that, because I'd like to have no interruptions between this build and the next one. But if we do, it'll probably be a brief one. It won't be very long. But yeah, Voyager is going to be next, and I'm really looking forward to getting into that build. That'll be a lot of fun to do. But it's not going to be nearly the length of the Enterprise D. So what else? I don't know, those of you that have been keeping up with Star Trek Strange New Worlds, I only put out 2 review episodes, and I've only got one of them on my channel up right now, because I've decided that my reviews, if I do anything, it's just going to be within my build videos, and I'll talk about it. But Strange New World Season 1 was a fantastic season. It had some low points, but also had some really high points. In my opinion, I think the best episodes for Strange New Worlds was the first episode and the last episode. that last episode, I mean, they really surprised me with what they did. And if you haven't seen it, then stop watching this episode right now. Go on Paramount Plus and watch the episode and come back. So, spoiler warning. But Pike basically gets visited by a future version of himself because his story arc this season has been coming to grips with the fact that in 7 to 10 years he's going to have to go through a horrible accident that's going to change his life and possibly kill him. And he's been trying to figure out ways to avoid this from happening, and he gets visited by a future version of himself that has come into possession of a time crystal so that he can go back in time and basically warn his younger self and tell him, hey, if you go in and you change the future, some pretty bad things are going to happen. And to fully understand this, you need, I can't just tell you, you have to live it. So he gets to live basically the defining moment that changes his the history going forward. And it pretty much comes down to, and I actually really enjoyed this, that there's a situation with the Romulans that Kirk was destined to handle. And because Pike prevents the accident, Kirk never gets promoted to the Enterprise, and Pike remains captain. And things unfold the way that they do, and it directly starts a war between the Romulans. And I thought that was pretty cool. I'm not going to go into the entire specifics of the episode. The guy that they got to play Kirk was pretty decent, but I got to be honest, I was kind of hoping for a few more maybe like mannerisms or just, and in general, like maybe a closer performance to Shatner. I don't feel that we really got that. The only reason I'm still holding out for this actor is because I was reading an interview, and they basically said that the version of Kirk that we saw is not the version of Kirk that we're going to get in season 2. And the reason for that is because in the season finale, the version of Kirk that we see is basically an alternate universe version of Kirk. If Pike had never died, if Pike had never gotten injured, and he remains captain of the Enterprise. So it's going to make some slight changes to, I guess, Kirk's how Kirk is in that universe, which I can kind of get behind that. But I still, with that being said, the guy that they got wasn't bad, but I'm hoping that they do maybe a slightly closer performance to Shatner for season 2, especially since this is supposed to be the prime timeline. I keep going back to that because, I really enjoyed this season of Star Trek. It's been since they've brought Star Trek back to TV, well, Paramount Plus, but since they brought Star Trek TV shows back, I think that Strange New Worlds has hands down been the best. But with that being said, they still have a long way to go. But again, you could make the argument that, Star Trek usually doesn't really get into its groove until like season 2 or season 3. And maybe that'll be the case with Strange New Worlds. I think that they've got a great starting off point, but there's some things I'd like to see in season 2, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see what happens with that. Trying to dance around talking about some of the spoilers, I guess I can, because I've already thrown out the spoiler warning, but basically, with the season finale of Strange New Worlds, the main reason why Pike ultimately decides that he's not going to mess with changing his future anymore is that anytime he changes it, Spock's going to take his place. In other words, Spock's going to be the one to get injured. And and the future Pike tells him is like, it doesn't matter how many times you go in the future and try to change things, somebody has to take your place, and it's going to be Spock. And he's very important to the universe. He's important to the future of relations between the Romulans and the Federation. I love that because they made seldom references to the Kelvin timeline. So, I mean, I love all that. But I keep going back to that. It's almost like that they want to change Pike's future. And, this would just have been a perfect opportunity. And, like, I go back to Discovery because it's honestly their fault. The producers of that show that, when they first mentioned Discovery, they're like, oh, this is going to be in the prime timeline. And I think people got excited because we know what Star Trek has done in the past with the Prime timeline. They've stayed true to it. Anytime that, I want to say it was Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine was the show to go back to the original series. And honestly, Enterprise did too. I take that back. Enterprise and Deep Space Nine, when they did it, man, they stayed true to it. It was perfect. Absolutely perfect. And then when Discovery came around, it was like, oh, they've got these holograms and all this stuff and the technology and the ships. It looks better than TNG. And there's like, wait a second, this isn't matching up right. And basically my point is that, you know, it's become crystal clear that no matter what show it is, they want to tell this story basically in an alternate universe, but they're not willing to basically make it in an alternate universe. So they're like, well, we're just going to update it and assume people will be okay with it. You can't really do that with Star Trek. You've got to match things up. And it's just like, again, you know, going into how they take care with Star Wars. Now, you can have your own opinion on the sequel trilogy, but when the Millennium Falcon shows up, it's the Millennium Falcon. There's no changes, except for maybe what the deflector dish. But again, that goes right into canon because they lost the deflector dish in the ending of Return of the Jedi. So again, it's that attention to detail. You know, they honestly, they would have been better off if they just decided from the get-go that, you know what, yes, we're going to go back to right before Kirk, but we're going to tell something in another alternate timeline. This way we can do whatever we want to do. They had this problem with Discovery all the way up until they went 900 years into the future, and that was basically their excuse for getting around it. And they finally realized that, like, okay, well, the stories that we were wanting to tell, it's not matching up, and the fans aren't having it. So let's just go 900 years in the future so we can do whatever they want. They should have started with that, you know. They should have went 900 years in the future, or again, you know, say it was an alternate timeline. This way they can get away with stuff like that. Because the main argument now is, why don't the uniforms match up to how they looked in the original series? Why doesn't the Enterprise match up to how it looked? You know, somebody made the argument to me like, oh, well, you know, this is still before Kirk. And it's like, okay, well, I'll buy that. But the problem is the pilot episode of the original series, The Cage, the Enterprise is there. And this is 11 years before Kirk. So this is right within the window that Strange New Worlds takes place. So we know how the uniforms look. We know what the ship looks like, and they've changed it. You know, I've been a firm believer that what they should have done was just take the original designs and just make them look just a little bit sleeker. If they would have done that, keeping the original designs, and even the same thing like with the bridge and the interiors of the ship, just, you know, keep the same design, make it look a little bit nicer, a little bit more clean, modern, but stay within that original design, maybe update the consoles and things like that a little bit. I think they would have been in better shape. And like, I give them credit for this season of Strange New Worlds. The sets that they built for the Enterprise were actually way, way better than what we saw in Discovery, because when we saw the Enterprise on Star Trek Discovery, anytime we saw the interior, it was basically just a redress of the Discovery. So it didn't really match up. Now, when you look at the interior on the Enterprise and Discovery and Strange New Worlds, it doesn't match up to the original series, but what it does actually match up to is the Enterprise A refit. If you look at the corridors, they are a little bit bigger, but the shape of them is very, very, very reminiscent of how the corridors looked on the Constitution refit. So, I mean, that's kind of cool, but, you know, again, you know, it's like, it's maybe 15 years before that ship should look like that. And again, you know, we're in the universe where nothing was changed. George Kirk wasn't killed. The Kelvin wasn't destroyed. So there's no reason why the ship should look that different. So, you know, there's just some kind of continuity issues there that they don't really seem all that keen to address. And it just kind of is what it is. These are the things I think that, well, not the main things, but minor things that stop the show from being fantastic. Another thing that really kind of hurt me with Star Trek Strange New World Season 1 was that they killed off Hemmer. I couldn't believe it. Hemmer was hands down, out of all the new characters that they've added on the show, and even the legacy characters that they brought back, I honestly thought that Hemmer was the most interesting one out of all of them. I really liked the actor that they got. His portrayal of Hemmer was great, and I don't even understand why they bothered to kill him off. But we'll have to. I guess we'll have to wait and see what will happen. They did have an Easter egg of Scotty in the future episode of the finale. So I mean, maybe Scotty will be coming aboard the Enterprise, but still, that kind of hit me in the heart a little bit that they killed off Hemmer. I wish that he would have stayed around. But that being said, we don't see him die. We just kind of see him fall to his death. So you could make that argument that, well, maybe Hemmer's not really dead, and I hope that he's not. I hope that they bring him back, and he's the engineer on the Enterprise while Pike's in command. That would be pretty cool. I mean, other than that, those are kind of my gripes with the show. I gotta be honest, some of the storylines that they picked for the season itself, I thought that they were, honestly, they played it just a little bit too safe. Like the medieval episode where this entity comes across Mbaga's daughter, and he basically projects this story that Mbaga's been reading to his daughter, and it's become a reality on the Enterprise, and it's all like medieval times and stuff. And this kind of like reminded me a lot of the original series, and then also Next Generation. But the problem that I have with it is that it's almost like they saw an episode of the original series or TNG where they did this. They were like, oh, this is very Star Trek, we can do this. And this is why they need to bring in, I want to say the guy's name was Howard Moore or Ronald D. Moore. That sounds right. He was one of the writers on Star Trek The Next Generation. He also worked on Battlestar Galactica. They need to get a writer that knows what Star Trek is. And I think that's one of the things that have really kind of hurt the new string of shows, is that they'll bring in these writers that aren't bad, but they don't really know the universe. They don't understand it. So they'll watch something as a reference and be like, okay, well, that's perfect Star Trek, we'll just copy that. And it's like, well, you're not even really doing a good job of it. You're doing a piss poor job of it, and you're just kind of ripping off what's been done. I had a debate with my brother about this, and like, I kind of agree with like, okay, well, if you're going to copy shows from the original series in TNG, you should look for some of the better ones to make it great. But also the problem with that, again, is that you're not trying to tell original stories. I don't know what, and I've talked about this in the past, like there's a manual that Gene Roddenberry wrote to write the perfect Star Trek episode or movie, and they, like, seriously, like, they need to give it to the producers to give to the writers so that they can understand how to write Star Trek. Star Trek has always been, at its core, morality issues in the present time, kind of wrapped up and hidden within sci-fi action and, suspense and all that. But that's what Star Trek always was. There's nothing but morality issues that we deal with today. And I think that's something I'd like to see more of, and heartfelt stories, and something just more original science fiction. They shouldn't be leaning on the best episodes of the original series as inspiration. I mean, you can hit that every once in a while, but again, I want to see them kind of forge their own path, and what they could do with it. But we'll see. I've been hearing good things about season 2. Of course, they are going to say that. The show's not even out yet, but based on what I've seen with season 1, I'm at least hopeful. But we'll kind of have to wait and see what happens. I'm still very excited about it. I'm more excited about Strange New World season 2 than I am about Picard Season 3. I've actually got some doubt and concerns that they're not going to do Picard Season 3 justice. I don't think that they did Season 2 justice. Again, like going into, you have these writers that don't really understand Star Trek, and they're like, okay, well, what's the most interesting idea that, or the most popular idea that a Star Trek show or movie's ever done? Oh, time travel. That's what we'll do, and it'll be awesome. And it's like you don't understand Star Trek. And I won't even get in Picard because I've kind of covered it in the past. And I don't want to say season 2 is terrible, but honestly, it wasn't really great. It was almost it was something that could have been achieved in one episode. Like when you finally get through the end of it, and you find out why Q is doing what he's doing. Like again, this is something that they could have done in one episode very, very easily. They did it on TNG, but again, that's the problem with these modern writers, that they're not creative people, and they'll get one idea that is maybe good enough for one episode, and they stretch it out into an entire season. That is the one reason why I at least appreciate Strange New Worlds, that the format that they write the show, they're kind of forced to come up with new ideas, as opposed to how they do it on Picard and Discovery. Well, they'll just have one idea and just stretch it out through an entire season. Gives the opportunity to tell a lot more. But, we'll see. Apparently, Paramount is going to be at Comic-Con this year, and they've got a lot of surprises. I'm expecting that we'll probably be getting a trailer, a full-on trailer for Picard Season 3. I think Lower Decks is going to be on there too, and probably Season 5 of Discovery. To be honest with you, I can live without seeing Season 5 of the Discovery. And, it's kind of weird too, because I actually didn't hate Season 4, but, again, they're just... The way that whole show has been formatted is completely not Star Trek. I have a hard time finding reasons to enjoy it. But we'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully they'll do they have some cool things lined up. Apparently they've been getting ready to do somewhat of a shared multiverse with Star Trek. I don't know if that's going to be any good, but I've read rumblings in the past, or the last 6 months to a year, that that's going to be something that they're going to be doing at some point, like something similar to like the Avengers meeting up together. It'll be an equivalent to that, but for Star Trek, where I don't know if the Kelvin timeline will be coming into the Prime timeline, or vice versa, where you have these other crews meeting up to face a problem or issue. But knowing what they've been doing with Star Trek, it'll probably just be who the next villain's going to be. And that goes right into my main problem with the new Star Trek movie that they're going to be making, is that you can almost guarantee that it's going to be a villain, as opposed to having a problem for them to face. It's one of the reasons why I love Star Trek for the Voyage Home. Like, there's no mustache twirling villain in that movie whatsoever. They've got a problem to face, and they have to solve it. And not every single Star Trek needs to have just a villain to go through. And it's literally reached that point where it's like you've done 12 movies or so now, and almost every single one of them has a main villain except for one. It's good to mix it up a little bit, because I think especially like the last couple of movies that they've done, you can almost tell like they don't have a direction to go in. Like, they copied themselves in Star Trek Beyond, and nobody even realized it. The villain that they had for Star Trek 3 was a Starfleet officer who was abandoned and betrayed by Starfleet, so he decides to turn his back on them. Ironically enough, that was almost the same exact story arc for Khan in Star Trek Into Darkness, where Admiral Waller found Khan, he enlisted him in Starfleet, and then he backstabbed him, so Khan decided that he's going to wage a one-man war on Starfleet. basically the same, literally the same motivations. Um, at least with the 2009 movie, what they did with Nero, they gave the character some weight, and he had real reasons um, for making the decisions that he did. You know that um, Spock was supposed to save Romulus, he didn't, and he blamed him. Very, very cut and dry. Um, but even then, you know, it's kind of very similar to the other two villains. So we'll have to wait and see what they do with that. But I mean, it's a problem that they have with Star Trek right now. You look at um, what they've done; it's all too similar. And, you know, you look at the best, not the best movies, because again, only one of them has really done it. But some of the best Star Trek shows don't have a villain in it. It's a problem that the crew has to solve. And I hopefully that we can see just more of that in general going forward. Um, anyway, I do want to get in a little bit what we got going on here. There wasn't really much to explain because we're literally just taking our front piece here and moving a couple blocks forward. And also adjusting our gray strip that connects the engine to the pylon. Now that we've got that done, we're going to be focusing on this outline here. Now, I don't think that we're going to be doing the lines in the middle. I think we just end up doing the outside. I'm pretty certain I didn't do it on camera. I might have done it off camera. I added these extra lines. If I do it, don't quote me on it. Or hold against me. Sometimes this whole thing is just a giant blur. Okay, yeah, so we are going to do the straight line of it. But basically, what I'm trying to determine right now is if I can do all of this within the amount of room that I have to work with here. Because again, remember, I've only got half the scale to work with here for my version of the Enterprise. It's half the size of what it's supposed to be. So that's going to come with some issues when we're adding in certain details. So what we're basically going to end up falling on is that this, these lines in the center of this outline here, we're not going to use them because we just don't have the room for it. And my main goal was just to get this outline and then to have the NCC 1701D coming over it. Now, I think we'll just have enough to get this outline done today, and then we'll be coming back to it in the next episode where we'll be adding more to it, and then we'll be putting in the registration, and then moving on to the next section of the ship. But, you know, again, this goes right into shipbuilding 101, you know, looking at the reference material that you have to work with and looking for those little details that we can carry over into the ship to make it come to life just a little bit more than what we had. Because we're at a really good place right now where we've got a nice template to work off of. At this point, it's just a matter of detailing it and bringing in all those little details from the Enterprise days. Again, remember, there's not a lot of details. When you take out the Aztec pattern of the ship, we don't have a lot of stuff to work with here. So almost anything that we can come across that we can transfer, we're going to try to transfer it over. But I think that's about all the time that we've got today for episode 156. I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me and supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. New subscribers, don't forget to hit notifications on so you get notified when those new videos drop. And speaking of new videos, you can always catch my new Minecraft episodes dropping Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. If you haven't, be sure to join the Discord. I'll have a link in the description below. If you have any questions regarding today's episode, be sure to drop a comment either on YouTube or Discord. Definitely love hearing from everybody. And yeah, I think that's going to do it today. I hope everybody has a happy and safe week. And of course, what did you make in Minecraft today? Let me know in the comments section, and I'll catch you in the next episode.